So recently I've been seeing a few people on my timeline basically telling you that you can do TikTok marketing or you can do your clipping or organic marketing business with VPNs or proxies. And I'm here to tell you that that information is completely false. Now, some of you might be asking, who am I and what would I know about phone botting or proxies or anything like that? As someone who's built their own proxy farm and has ran a organic marketing and phone botting business for about 2 years now, I can tell you with confidence that proxies and VPNs are going to weigh negatively against your trust score with platforms. I'm going to explain exactly how over on my computer. So what is trust score and how can we measure this? So when you think of trust score, you should think of your standing with a platform. If you have a good standing with a platform, you have a good trust score. If you have a bad standing, you have a bad trust score. If you have a bad trust score, you're more likely to be shadow banned or full banned, while when you have a good trust score, you're less likely or you'll survive on the platform and get good views. Now we can think of trust score on a 0 to 1 scale with multiple variables leading into whether you are on the higher end, which is 1, or the lower end, which is 0. Some variables at play is something like your IP or your hardware ID. These are going to be things that TikTok or Instagram can look at in order to see if you are in good standing or you are in bad standing. Some of the other variables could be your account creation method or the actual content that you're posting to the site. Now, each one of these variables is going to be weighed differently based on the platform you're running on. So Instagram might value IP more, or TikTok might value content more when they're determining if you're a bad account. Regardless, this is what trust score is. It's a measurement of all the variables that could play into your account having a good standing or a bad standing. With trust score, your goal is to look as human as possible to try not to be put in any bucket that's going to negatively affect you. Now, before you post any content at all or even make your account, there's going to be two major things that Instagram can look at, and that is your hardware ID and your IP. Now, the hardware ID is going to refer to what your device's profile is. So if you're using an iPhone, you're going to have iPhone identifiers. If you're using a Samsung, you're going to have Samsung identifiers. And this is basically what your most important foundation is for running. Now, just to say quickly, emulators are going to be almost impossible to do for TikTok. Samsungs are going to weigh super negatively against your score, but can be viable in some cases, where iPhone is going to be your cream of the crop. You look like a US consumer platform. This is what you're ideally going to use if you're doing bot marketing at scale. Now, some apps are going to allow you to spoof the values of the actual hardware ID that's being sent to Instagram. Now, this is something you can't really do for TikTok, but for other applications, it's 100% possible. And this is where you get into things like cloning, where you can install multiple instances of a Instagram on your phone. So you could have hundreds of Instagrams on a phone, and I can go into a video on that later. But this other one we're touching on today is IP. This is going to basically send the information of what your device's address is every single time you make a request to TikTok. So it's going to show information about like where you're located. It might show your network provider. Your IP has a lot of wrapped up information in it alone. And if your IP looks bad or it looks from China or it looks from India, you're not going to have a good trust score. You're not going to look like a US consumer, and you're usually going to get put into a completely separate bracket that's not able to reach that consumer audience that you're likely trying to sell to. So real quickly, let's just hone into the IP side of things since this is what we're touching on. If you're a normal TikTok user, your IP might look something like your home router connected to TikTok with maybe an occasional 4G connection over to TikTok. This is probably the closest look to a real human profile that you're going to get. You're going to want to try to be as close to this as humanly possible. Now, one other thing that you can do, or people think you can do, is that you can use a proxy. And what a proxy is, it is essentially something where you can look like you're from a US IP with data center IPs or data center proxies. And then you can also look like a US 4G user, which is where you get into mobile proxies, which are usually seen as more reliable for botting on platforms. Now, with a data center proxy, you might be thinking, okay, I got a brand new IP. This may look like a house. It's a single IP that you connect from and you connect to TikTok servers. Now, in theory, if you get few of these and you put one of them on each device is making a connection from a different IP to TikTok, so that if one of these devices gets banned, this one doesn't get detected and this one doesn't get detected. 4G proxies are a little different because there's a cell tower, and the cell tower distributes IPs to phones. And now, because there is a limited amount of IPv4 IPs in the world, there's a pool of, let's say, 100 IPs that the cell tower can give out to 4G connections. Now, if you have a cell tower in your neighborhood, there might be 10 phones connecting to the cell tower at any given time, and this one might get IP1, this one might get IP2, and this one might get IP3. Now, what happens is if IP3 is disconnected from this phone, let's say they leave the cell tower range or they connect back to their home Wi-Fi, they might reconnect to the tower later on and get IP4. Or let's say both of these disconnect and 2 now might get 3 and 4 might get 7. You're always swapping your IPs and you're trading this pool around hundreds of different devices. Now, this is good for you because if TikTok decides that IP number 7 here is doing some bad things on the platform, TikTok cannot go and ban IP7 because let's say this user right here, number 3, uses TikTok as well, and they later connect and get IP7, well, then this user will be banned too. And that's bad because you can't ban a IP in a cell tower because multiple other people at different times are going to get that IP distributed to them. Now, to summarize, proxies are good in theory because they give you a different IP for each one of your devices. And when you connect to TikTok and you're doing these bot actions or these spam actions and TikTok decides to ban your IP, you can either buy another proxy, which gives you another IP, or you can simply rotate your IP with the 4G cell tower ones. Now, VPNs are basically the same thing, whereas when I'm referring to proxy, I'm referring to where you're buying like a residential IP or you're buying a mobile IP from a cell tower, and then you're connecting it to a device so it shows that IP. A VPN is going to be essentially the same thing, where your phone first connects its traffic to a IP at a VPN server, and then the IP of the VPN is then used to send your traffic to TikTok. And then this is routed back through the VPN and back to your phone. Both of them, regardless, are going to change your IP. And in theory, they're going to avoid you from getting banned just off your network connection by TikTok. Now, this whole system here is what people on Twitter will tell you is good. They'll tell you this is all good to go. There's no problems with this. You're basically good. You're switching your IP. No worries. TikTok can't detect you. And the problem with this is TikTok can detect you, and I'm going to show you exactly how they can and why this negatively affects your trust score. Now, what I've pulled up here is I've pulled up a live feed of one of my jailbroken iPhones, which is right over here on this phone wall, as you can see. And I've also pulled up a demo script that I created for the purposes of this video. Now, just to explain quickly what that demo script is, it's going to go through and it's going to pull the TikTok package over from the iPhone onto my computer. It's going to decompile it to basically see all the actual functions and code of the TikTok app itself. Then it's going to use something called Frida scripts, which is a way to hook functions and basically see what's calling what at runtime, which basically means when the app runs, what is the app calling? What functions are it calling? What information is it gathering from the phone? And what information is being sent with those functions outside of the app over to TikTok? And so that demo script is basically just going to go through and do all that. I've automated the whole thing with Claude, of course, to go through this process. But basically what it did there was it pulled the path. So here's TikTok right here, size, all of that. And so after it pulled it, it looked for these specific functions, which are part of TikTok's source code. So one of them is network copy system proxy settings. And now if you have any idea where I'm going with this, you can probably get clued into why this is important. Get IF address and new path uses interface type. It's looking at a few other ones here, but this is essentially a bunch of functions that have to do with network, VPNs, or proxy that TikTok has natively inside of its application. Now I'm going to go ahead and run the live execution of the app, and then from that execution, we're going to see what those functions call and what the values are. All right. And so that basically completed. As you can see in that, we opened TikTok twice, and that was for a specific reason. So the first time we opened TikTok and we did not have a proxy or any type of VPN installed or running on the phone. And as you can see from these logs, which is, remember, the actual functions of TikTok, the app itself, what it looks for, what it grabs, and what it's sending. So as you can see through this, we have basically the Musical.ly core at runtime calling this function for getIf address. And what this did is it returned VPN shaped faces, IPsec 0, IPsec 1, IPsec 0, 0 ton, 0 ton, or uton 0, uton 1. And it's basically looking for all the VPN shaped faces. So type of data that looks like VPN. And through this, there's a few other calls in here that are making calls to other additional functions within the app itself, but the ones that return these gray values are important. So as you can see, the core functionality or the core runtime packages called the network copy system proxy settings, and here it returned that we have 0 for HTTP, which shows that we have a false value for the HTTP proxy, and then HTTPS, which is also 0, showing that it's false for a proxy. So just with this demonstration alone, we've shown that there is functions natively inside of TikTok that are looking for your VPN or your proxy face, or your any type of proxy being set based on your system proxy settings. Now, if we head over to the second launch here, this is where we actually applied an HTTP proxy, and we applied it to the Wi-Fi settings. If you go into Wi-Fi settings, you can go to manually apply proxy, and then you can set that. On jailbroken phones, you can set that through the jailbreak, of course, because you have access to the system APIs. So through here, you can see it's checking for the same shapes of faces. It's calling the getIf address. And then one thing, if you come down here, is you can see CF network copy system proxy settings, tongue twister, is HTTP 1 and HTTPS 1. And on top of that, it returns HTTP proxy, and then the IP of the proxy, and then HTTPS proxy, and the IP of the HTTPS proxy. These two things are showing you that not only did it return that you have a proxy installed, but it returned the IP of the proxy, which is probably going to be separate than your network or your home network or your 4G IP. So then if it's not clear already, you might be asking, why does this all matter? And the clear reason it matters is that TikTok is tracking if you have a proxy. It is tracking if you have a VPN. These are both things that you cannot avoid having set to your iPhone that you can hide or spoof. These are going to be part of the system APIs that TikTok is calling at runtime in order to get your information about your phone or your proxy you're running. And if you were to try to change these or spoof these, you would need a broken phone, which is going to give a bunch of other clear identifiers that people already come to the conclusion on that TikTok is going to shut down or close down on you for. So going back to why trust score is important is there's multiple different variables that can affect whether you're being seen as a bot, or you're being seen as a spam poster, or you're being seen as a legitimate person. Two of the big ones are the hardware ID and the IP. And within the IP, you're trying to match that home network versus 4G SIM, real 4G SIM IP connection type. When you're using a proxy, you think you're getting around it by switching the IP, but one thing that's important to note is that not only are you switching the IP, but you're also giving away indicators directly to TikTok that you are on a VPN or are on a proxy. Now, I want to be honest that at the start I said the information was wrong that you can run on a VPN or proxy. That's not entirely correct. you may have some success with it, especially if your trust score is high. If you are running a VPN or a proxy on a iPhone 17, well, then you might have some success. Yes, of course. But the only issue with this is when I advise people on what they should be doing for organic marketing, if you're scaling into another phone that isn't just your normal phone, or you're using VPNs or proxies, you're usually aiming into the black hat world where you're using multiple different phones and you're trying to post at scale in order to spam TikTok and get more engagement and more views for whatever you're trying to sell. Now, when you're doing this, it's very important because the system you build on top of, the system that you use all your phones or put your phones on top of, where your revenue stream, where your money that you make lives, is on the system that you've made. And if TikTok decides one day that they have a bot problem and you don't have all of your scores, all of your little variables playing into your trust score tuned to look as much as a human as possible, let's say they just do a blanket ban or they increase the likelihood that VPNs or detected proxies are going to put you into view jail or shadow banning. Well, then this whole system you've spent probably thousands of dollars on for all your iPhones is going to be either destroyed or just you won't be able to use it. So in that case, it's always going to be in your best interest to try to make all of your identifiable variables towards your trust score more like a human. And one of the biggest ones is IP. And if your IP is having a tag attached to it when it's sent to TikTok saying this is a proxy or this is a VPN, if you get banned in the future, that is a very destructive thing if you have a system at scale. And it is super important that you just do what is most advised, which is just buying a SIM and inserting into the phone. So in this case, you should be getting SIM cards and you should be putting those inside of your phone in order to make sure that your system, when you scale it, isn't being chopped at the base if TikTok decides to do any type of bans or anything like that. So of course I went over a lot and I know I skipped a lot of information, but if any of the information that you heard in this video is interesting to you and you want to dig into it deeper, leave a comment below. I'm not trying to sell anything in this video. I just want to give more information to people so that they know that they're getting the correct information and what they're trying to aim for if you're trying to build one of these organic marketing systems. And that's really all I have for now. So peace out.